There are three key ways to finance a new business. Traditional financing from banks and credit unions, also known as debt financing because you take out debt. Equity financing, which uses investors, often in exchange for a share of the business. And crowdfunding or other alternative sources of capital. We're going to touch on all three today. And I'm going to start with a question for Joe, our illustrious founder of this amazing event. Tell us what traditional lenders look for in a good business loan application, please.
Well, first of all, I'm going to tell one quick story about this. This is when I also had an accounting practice. And about 25 years ago, I was pitching this very large account out in Long Island. And what they asked me, and it was a big accounting firm that had done a draft of their tax return, and they asked me to take a look at their tax return. And lucky me that I was looking at this tax return, and it didn't foot. That the numbers on a major accounting firm and the numbers just didn't foot. So the main thing to be sure of, the first thing, is to make sure that all your information is correct, that the numbers make sense, and everything is accurate. As anybody can attest to now, the banks have gotten over the top insane in determining who's valid for a loan. Who here lately has applied for a mortgage or some type of loan? Raise your hand, please. How many times did you have to go back and forth to the bank to give them more information, to verify every deposit, to verify everything? Just make sure, do the best that you can to make sure that it's accurate, as it presents the best picture possible, and you can support all the information that you give.
Anyone else have anything to add?
I would say that you want to make sure you know your numbers. When you decide on applying for a loan from any source, make sure you understand what it is that you're presenting because it needs to make sense.
David, I'm going to ask the next question of you because I think this is something you teach in your courses. What attributes should one look for in a financial partner? And an example that strikes me is that my business partner, Evelyn, who's here, and we founded Awesome Women Entrepreneurs, which is a small startup, and we have gone back and forth for the last couple of years. Should we borrow money? Should we get investors? What are the pros and cons of those types of choices?
And that's a great question. I will say this, and I tell our students every semester, it's a great time right now. There's more money in the world, more capital than there has ever been. Business capitalism is not a zero-sum game. The pie keeps getting bigger. So that's the first thing just to know. There is a lot of money out there. It's not easy to get your hands on, but it is available and it's there and it grows every day. I don't know what the stock market did today, but we're on a great path. So know that it's out there and it takes to get it. Now, which money? Before I'd even get into debt or equity or crowdfunding, I'd also say with so much money out there, you want to find smart money. You want to find money that has an understanding of what your business is, what your customers are interested in, what your cash flows might be like, and they understand where they're going, so they can bring something more than just the actual capital. It might be networking, it might be partners, it might be distribution channels, but if they understand your space, you get more than just the actual capital. Now back to the original question, as we heard at the beginning, there are different types of capital. There's equity, which means the owner's share of the business. So you may be the founder, but if you take equity from them, you are giving them part of your business. And what that means, this is like Shark Tank, right? If you watch that, what that means is they have a voice now. They have some say in it. So figuring out how much equity to give away is an important thing. Now the beauty of equity, right, is that you don't have to pay it back. It's not a liability. There's no interest payments. That's why they call it risk capital. It can all go away. If the business goes bust, the equity owners, whether it's you, the operator, or the person who gave you capital for a PCO, you get nothing. You're last in line. On the other side, like we heard, is debt. That's borrowing, right? Whether it's a mortgage, credit card, your business can take debt. What does that mean? It means it's going to impact your cash flow. You have to start paying that back. Depending on the term of the debt, it may be 6 months later, maybe a year, but you have to think about that. It's also a liability on your balance sheet. So it'll show up there as a negative as you go to do other things. Now the last part is crowdfunding, which this gets into really good detail, and I know we'll go there later, but this is a kind of third option that we've added to the table the last 5 or 10 years. It's actually not new. Crowdfunding's been around a long time. I don't know if people know. We were given the Statue of Liberty from France, but they didn't give us the base for it. So it was one of those gifts that came with a price tag. And the US, actually American citizens crowdfunded that base that the statue sits on. You give $1 or $5 and get a little replica, right? So these are the things at the highest level to think about. Are you going to give up ownership and some control but not have to pay it back and not have payments? Are you going to have debt payments but hurt your cash flow? Or are you going to do something different like crowdfunding? And I know we'll get into that. But you have to think about those things. So what's the answer to the original question? Depends on your business.
Michelle, do you have that? What are your thoughts on that?
I go back to the whole personal financial statement and figuring out based on where you are in your life, what your goals are for this business. That to me would dictate what source you're going to think about using. And I agree with what Joe said. Getting a loan these days is almost like giving blood. They want all your financial statements. So the more organized you are, making sure everything adds up, but having your documents nice and tidy in a row is going to be helpful for you.
So with what Michelle just said, it is vitally important. I oftentimes sit down with women and realize that you don't understand actually what a personal financial statement is, or had never seen one. And so it is vitally important that you understand you're already in business, even though you have not started what we traditionally call a business. You're already operating a family, using money, whatever processes you're doing with your family. And so when you understand if that's operating at a level where you're doing okay, fine, but we want to raise the level. So making sure you understand where you are is critical as you decide to jump into starting a business, because when you come into the process of you want to borrow other people's money or you want other investors, that you're going to have to understand how to present, what you're presenting, does it make sense? So again, understanding critically, financially, where you are. That's like the best gift you could give yourself this Christmas.
I want to add to that. When you're entering a business, taking your business to the next level, if you're in a partnership with someone, a lot of times it might be your idea, but not a unilateral decision. You're going to have that become part of the fabric of your life. So the more you are aware about your household responsibilities, your financial responsibilities, and the more you communicate that in your marriage and your relationship, the better your life will be. Because just like people get divorced from building their homes, a business is a stressful thing in someone's life. So the more organized and on top you are, the more you communicate, the easier I think it'll
I
be.
just want to add one last thing, is make sure that the person or the entity that's going to be your financial partner is someone that you, number one, trust, and also someone that's not leveraging his or her assets to be your partner, because then they're going to drive you crazy. Because then if you have a bad year or something, if this person is going into saying, I have 100,000, this is my last 100,000, I'm going to give it to you to start your business, and then you have a bad, just like a bad stretch that has nothing to do with your business, this person's going to drive you crazy. So just make sure that your partner can absorb this loss also, and it's a lot easier to have that kind of relationship.
Great point. Karlene, I know you teach a course in alternate financing, and I'd love to learn a little bit more about that, and I'm sure all of you will too. When does it make sense to pursue something like crowdfunding? And what are the different types of alternate financing?
Great question, and thank you. So when you think of where you are in business, financing is all about stages. Just like we have stages in life, financing is in a stage process. So again, individually, it depends on where you are. Which funding source would be appropriate? At some point, it might be a loan. At some point, it might be that investor source, whether it's an angel investor or venture capital type option. However, when we think of it from, again, the perspective of where you are in your business right now, is it viable to consider crowdfunding? Is it viable to consider a microloan? Is it viable to think of what we call peer-to-peer lending? And like Dr. Miller said, crowdfunding has been around for a long time, there are so many strategies to look at considering for financing a business. So crowdfunding, microfinancing, peer-to-peer lending, there are other strategic options, pre-sales. Sometimes you're looking at how you fund your business. Okay, I have to go to the bank. No, maybe you want to test the market, like our former presenter said, and see people buy before you actually finalize creating a product, and so you can have the cash to actually do that process. And so, actually, can I share tomorrow? I will actually be teaching that very class. So, yeah, so tomorrow I'll be teaching what we call options to finance your business or fund your business. And this August will be 10 years I've been teaching it for our organization. So it's been fun.
Where tomorrow?
In Springfield at the Community Business Partnership at 6564 Loisdale Court. Come and have fun. Interestingly enough, we've had the SBA shopping class. I can. I actually can. It will be at 2 p.m. tomorrow, so who knows. In helping, especially women, because I'll be frank, guys, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to beat you guys up, but women. Okay, thank you. So women usually show up. If I have 15 people in the room, I can tell you there's going to be 13 women. And the level of where you are, we want to make sure that you have an understanding. Start where you are and then scale over time. Just like you want to scale your business, you scale your financing. We've done strategies from $500. I want to get a small, laptop. I need to buy a printer for $150. And then you do something with that. You come back, you get a $2,000 loan. Or do we do family and friends? Can I ask you a question? Do you like your family and friends? Don't borrow from them? If you have to, put it in writing, okay? Because we've had folks show up asking us to pay back their family members. So we don't want to do that. So make sure you get the support, use the sources. The SBA has a lot of resources to help you understand how to develop those financials to be able to go after whether it's loan or crowdfunding or whatever strategy. And don't be fearful, because that's one of the biggest piece that I see with women. You fear money, and we got to get over it. Okay, it's a tool like a hammer, and you need to learn to use it. And so from there, come and see me.
I would just add on, has anyone here done crowdfunding or any alternative types?
See,
Anyone want to share a little bit how much you raised? Was it equity? Did it work, right?
So I did I Fund Women, which is a rewards-based crowdfunding.
Right.
And we pre-sold memberships. I own a co-working space. So before we built it, pre-sold it, and we raised $38,000.
Good job.
So, I don't know if you heard that was $38,000 for a co-work, and it was the pre-sale type. And frankly, that's what we tell a lot of people.
We talked about that.
Is can you prove it with pre-sales, because that will then make the bankers happier, that if you can show we pre-sold it. So if you want to open a restaurant, can you maybe crowdfund a catering business or a stand for farmers markets? Get those customers in the door, then go to the bankers.
So let me just share, Giselle did not actually put one of her lovely clients up here that we worked with through the LEAN program. She came through it. She got a $2,000 loan to do her catering business. And you can tell I'm already excited because, again, this is what I live for. She got a $2,000 loan to start her catering business and went through the LEAN program, did exceptionally well, grew the business and did pay the loan back, grew the business to where it was time to scale from what we call a incubator for food businesses. And so we actually helped her find a location, did a walkthrough, and had a deal structure with the landlord to finance it in a way that the landlord would be okay and the client would also be okay. And from there, she used crowdfunding to get the rest of the money she needed. So just great stories that are out there.
So just like you said before, that you pre-sold and then you sold the memberships. A lot of times you'll have a business that you don't even see. It's an asset that your company or your business might have that you don't even see that could generate revenue. Actually, I was talking to somebody yesterday, they were talking about their business, and they're thinking of their business as with some type of store or some location where you have operations from, let's say, 6 in the morning to 6 at night, but you don't realize that you still own or lease the real estate, and you could generate funds from renting out that space or bringing in other businesses for the other 6 hours. So before you even think about whether you need financing or not, see if there's any other asset that you might have that you might be able to generate funds from.
Very interesting. What was the name of that crowdfunding platform?
I Fund Women.
I Fund Women.
I thought we're in competition.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a question about crowdfunding.
We're gonna go to questions.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We'll go back to it.
We're
You'll
gonna
have
go back
lots
to
of
all the
time for
questions
questions.
later. Okay, great.
So, Joe, I'm going to go to you next with another really important question. And I do feel that, like you say about women not having, women being afraid or not comfortable talking about money, I feel like there's such a lack of financial literacy. We don't learn it in school. It should be taught in school. I used to think that when I was raising my daughters. So how do you know how much to ask for? I think we are afraid. We probably ask for too little.
Well, actually, I'd have to say it's not a matter of how much you're asking for, it's what you're asking the money for. Now, a lot of times, I will get business plans that will say, I need $3 million to run my business, but inside that $3 million business plan, there's a built-in salary for the person raising the $3 million who's not putting any dough into the deal. They're asking for a salary of $250,000 to $350,000 per year. So it's basically raising the money to fund it. You have to make sure that you're asking that it makes sense, that if you're opening up a store, that you have enough money for the rent for 6 months, that you have enough for the security deposit, to have your salary, and to buy your initial inventory. Saying that I need $10,000 just to give a security deposit on the lease, and I want to open up the store, nobody's gonna bite at something like that, because you don't have the resource, you don't have the ability to fund your operation. And that money is just going to be, just a waste of time. And you think that people are going to give that to you because it's such a small amount of money. And do not be scared to ask for more, because people would rather see that it's a well thought off plan, that you can perpetuate your business, and that you'll get greater chance to be successful. Questions on later. All right. What else?
I would just jump to some of your earlier comments about this being realistic. And we always have to walk people through, but you don't get cash flow day one. So when you're sitting there thinking about how long is it going to take to open the store, to hire the right people, hire sales, marketing, is it going to be 6 months, 12 months? And entrepreneurs in general are overly optimistic. So you do need it's good to check with some other people to make sure these numbers look real. It could be a small business center, counselor, score, because you don't want to run out of money. And to Joe's point, think, are we going to need money in 6 months, 12 months? Because the last thing is, raising money takes a lot of time. That is time you will not be running your business. You will be out chasing money. So if you're back in 12 months, what's going to happen to your business if you as the founder is back going to banks or pitching investors? So make sure you do ask for enough.
And I think, having this food for thought and realizing that it's going to take time to scale your business to get the financing that you need gives you perspective. I talked about that. And having that perspective, don't beat yourself up that maybe it's taking longer than you thought it would. Just have that positive outlook that it's going to be successful.
Just as an anecdote, because I have to pitch it a little, I'm writing a book right now about a company called Peloton. I don't know if anyone's heard of it.
Yeah.
They filed an IPO recently. They were turned down by 400 investors. So here's a company that is worth $6 to $8 billion, who knows, in less than 10 years, but the first 400 investors wanted nothing to do with them. Yeah. So you have to keep at it. If your customers are there and your team is there, the investors will arrive eventually. So if you can have a strong customer base and a strong team, you'll get eventually the capital.
Absolutely. So I believe absolutely that there is a science behind how you fund your business. And once you understand that formula, that process, if you're starting out, regardless of your credit score, you shouldn't necessarily go straight to the bank first, though you do need to build a relationship with the bank. Okay? Building that relationship is critical, but it doesn't necessarily mean you go there first to borrow. From there build relationships through strategic processes, and that's gonna help you along the way too.
Thank you. Michelle, this one's for you. Why, I know your book is about, being aware of your whole personal financial picture and all of that. Why are personal finances so important for a business loan? Why do they ask us all about that?
Well, I'll give you my perspective on this, which is, if you don't have your house in order, how are you going to have your business in order? So the more you are aware of all aspects of your business and also your financial life, the more credible you're going to be to whoever you're asking to borrow money. So I think it's really critical. We have a bigger burden than other people that are W-2 employees. We have to really structure our business, make it clean and digestible for someone that is going to be lending or giving us, sharing in equity.
Karlene, how do you balance whether to leave a stable financial position and start your own company?
Wow. Okay, so let me start with my personal background. I have a 17-year-old autistic, high-functioning kid. I would say without him, you probably wouldn't know me, because I probably would not be doing what I'm doing today. With that said, I also have a 16-year-old, and between the two of them, they're individual businesses. That's not a joke, seriously. You talk about your husband committed suicide. December 3rd, 2016, I hospitalized my daughter because she actually tried to kill herself. In the process of all of this, folks, you gotta believe in your gut that you're onto something. You gotta believe that you can help somebody solve a problem. And you gotta believe that you can make a difference. And so, my route to being in finance, and it's one of these days the book will be out. Seriously, it's actually in the making. And I say that because people have asked me, women have asked me to actually tell my story. My route to being in financing is totally different from, I think, everybody that's out there. So why would I say, when it's time to jump in a good way, you have to look at where you are. This is, again, an individual decision. I remember being in the parking lot for 30 minutes. I had 30-minute lunch. I would make phone calls. I would work on my mailers when I started at the early stage of being in business. I would put the kids to bed between 8, 9 o'clock. And from there, be up till 1, 2 in the morning, maybe 3 o'clock to get stuff done. So while I'm at work doing what I need to do, or when I'm doing what I need to do with my kids, and I didn't talk about the other medical situation from birth to today that I've had to work through with my children, but still show up for people who have a need. So you have to be present. You have to believe in whatever it is that you're bringing to the market that you can make a difference. And that will tell you when to jump. I gave my last boss my resignation letter, and she refused to accept it. It sat on her desk for 3 solid months without being open. And I had to tell her, October 16th, I will be gone. So get somebody in here that I can train, because I will be leaving. And that was a prayer moment. I had a prayer moment, literally, had a conversation with God, and said, look, you've given me a mission. What am I supposed to do here? I got kids, I gotta take care of them, right? So at the end of the day, for you, you've gotta find your why, and it's gotta be powerful enough that you're going to impact the world.
One small thing to this is that it really a lot depends on your situation in life. Now, there's an adage that goes, you're young enough to make a mistake. So I've made plenty of mistakes, And if, you know, if you're in a stage where you have less responsibility and it's only you that you're responsible for, then what do you have to lose? Just go out and do it, you know, borrow, whatever you have to do. You know, you can go back, you can find a way to pay it back later on, but don't give up your dream because you're worried about the future if you don't have that much of responsibility, and just keep the dream going.
And I'll add on the back end to that. So I, for many years, had this vision of what I'm doing today, and I kept saying to myself, if not now, when? So I'm not in my 20s, but I'm not in my 80s either. And I thought, if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do this now. So, you know, depending on what stage of life you're in, you have to have perspective on your journey and what requirements you have of you. If you're in the messy middle and you gotta be a W-2 employee for a little while, then maybe you have this as a side hustle and then you grow it as your kids are older.
I love
As we
that.
say, it's never too late to start.
That's right.
But I would also say it's later than you think. Right? So figure out which one it is.
Can I just throw this at you?
All right, I just want to make sure we have 2 more questions, and we
Okay,
want to leave
cool.
plenty of time because we know they have a lot of questions.
Okay.
So you go ahead, but just
So
let's
really quick,
keep in mind.
one of the best gifts you can give yourself is to learn about you. What exactly makes you tick? So do some personal assessments. StrengthsFinder is a great one to start with, and see what it is that you might be in the wrong lane. You got to run your lane, run your race. So find out what your core strengths are. The weaknesses are there, but there are also key strengths that you might not be operating with. So that's
Great.
sorry.
David, how do you determine the value of your company when soliciting equity investors?
So in reality, right, this is where Shark Tank does a good job. It's really a negotiation,
Yeah.
right? Now, there are traditional techniques that we learn in school or that financial planners and out can teach us. So there's something called the discounted cash flow. Has anyone heard of that? Which really just looks at your revenue and who are your customers and how long are they going to keep coming in? Will it grow? Will it shrink? What's the lifetime value of one customer? It's kind of an academic exercise. There's also where you might look at comparables, like a house. What are homes in the neighborhood sell for? What are businesses like yours selling for? And oftentimes there'll be multiples of revenues or things like that. And then there's also an asset-based way to do it. What assets? Does it have a building? Does it have a customer list? Do you have a brand? Do you have inventory? That's kind of another very financial one. But at the end of the day, it then comes down to some kind of negotiation between you, the founding team, and whoever it is who wants to either give you debt or make an investment. So there are those traditional techniques, and you should be aware of them, and sometimes they'll be really similar if you run them, and sometimes they'll totally be divergent, and then you get into this negotiation. So that'll start us off.
Okay, anybody want to?
Okay, so let me add to this. Right now, I'm working with a client that she listened and followed through. Critically, when you get advice, take the nuggets out of it and use them. She did. She attended, I think, about 7 or 8 pitch competitions and won at least 6 of them. Yes. To the point now, she has 4 investors and our organization that is actually working to finance her, to bring her product to the market. So possibilities exist. Get trained, get a critical process in place to help you grow whatever the idea or the current business is.
Okay, I have one last
No,
interesting.
just
Okay.
add one thing to this, is that if you have a financial partner that's really going to make this happen for you, it's just one simple, remember, I'd rather own a small part of something that's going to be worth a lot of money than own a large part of something that's going to be worth nothing. So if this financial partner can bring you to the promised land, just remember, it's better to own less of something that makes a lot of money than own a lot of something that doesn't make any money.
Otherwise known as don't be greedy. Yeah.
Okay, and finally, Joe, when do you decide, if you've got a business and you've tried everything and it just isn't working, when do you decide when it's time to walk away?
Well, besides walking, Karen and I were talking about this question before, and my definition, my other way of expressing it is, how do you deal with sunk costs? Does anybody here know what a sunk cost is? All right. A sunk cost is basically that how much money you've invested in something at that point, all right, and that's your investment to date. Now, I'm just gonna tell a quick story. I was 34 years old. I was flying down to Florida to look at an art gallery space to invest for companies I was lending money on art galleries, and I met somebody on the plane who knew somebody who was investing in this new baseball league that was starting in 1989. It was called the Senior Baseball League. I'm sure very few of you have heard of it, but they had ex-major leaguers, 35 and older, playing in Florida. And as a big sports fan, as a kid, I said, I gotta have one of these, I gotta have one of these, right? So I put together a syndicate, and I ended up buying the Port St. Lucie team, right? And it was a great concept, and considering what's the proliferation of minor league teams all over, how much they're worth now. It was just the wrong seat, it was the wrong place to have it. Everybody thought you have it in Florida during the winter, and there's no other baseball. It was the wrong thought, because down in Florida, you have everything. You have football, college football, all the sports, all the other activities, and also the weather wasn't that great. So while we got all this notoriety, Wall Street Journal picked my team to finish in first. We actually finished in last, but my team lost. My team, and I had all the big names on my team, but we put together. I was 34. Put together the group. We invested over $1 million, and we weren't sure. We just teetered to just make it through the season. A couple of teams dropped out, and we're talking about going into the second season. I was looking for investors, and I found somebody that wanted to buy my baseball team. And they said, okay, I'll buy your baseball team for $25,000. And I said, wow, for $25,000, I've already invested $1 million, we've invested $1 million. How can I take that $25,000? But I said no, and I walked away. And I subsequently lost a couple $100,000 more, and then the thing became worthless, right? So what you have to realize is that you gotta break away emotion, or how much is there, from reality. And you have to look at where you are at that point, at that specific point, not how much you put in, how much you invested emotionally, or how much you invested financially. You have to measure it at that point, or else you're not making the right decision.
And I would say, it's very analogous to your own personal finances, because sometimes you get so emotionally attached to a particular stock or an inheritance maybe that you remember your grandfather gave you, and you lose all logic. So having someone that is unbiased work with you, same thing, when is it time to leave a business, getting some opinions from the outside.
All right, should we take some questions? Okay, so someone had a question about crowdfunding first of all. Where was that?
Yes, is it true, I'm interested in trying to crowdfund.
Can you speak up, please?
I'm interested in trying a crowdfunding campaign, but is it true that it's like a job in and of itself?
It's like a whole business in
So it's
itself.
like a 40-hour week to make it succeed, or?
I can't tell you that it would take a 40-hour week. There's a process to getting into a crowdfunding concept. So you have to understand what it is you're going to present to the market. You then need to understand what are you going to offer the market, and then the timeline that whichever platform you decide to use, how that platform will work for your business or maybe not. So it all depends. There are various types, so it's understanding what they require, but if you're not going to put the effort in, it doesn't make any sense.
So is it like 20 hours?
I cannot tell you because there's research to be done first.
How many people, you know what, it's like how many people spend days and hours on their Instagram and their Facebook, and they get 3 likes or 4 likes or something, and then you'll find somebody that will go on Facebook or go on Instagram and put something on, and they'll get 1,000, they'll get 1,000 likes or 2,000 likes. It depends on the product. It's just like in, you ever see the movie Back to School? It's Rodney Dangerfield, right? And he's having dinner with his second wife, and she's, they're not getting along or whatever, and he's acting like a Bolvan and, brusque and all that. And he's saying, Thornton, nobody's gonna come back here because you're acting like that. You know what he said? If the roast beef is good, they'll come back. So it's the same thing. You have a good product, the product it's not just, the effort that you have to put in and knowing that, but it's, if you have something that's, that appeals to people, people are going to invest in it.
Maybe a good benchmark would be your experience with raising the $38,000. How did that work out from a time perspective?
I mean, it's hard to put an exact number on it, but it definitely, the weeks where we took a break to try and catch our breath, we raised nothing. The weeks that we were out there and we were talking to people, and we were pushing, and we were posting, and we were emailing, and we were texting, those are the weeks we raised money.
And I would throw out as a benchmark, I believe the most recent research I saw that the average crowd fund is around 6,000 or 7,000, right? So that's a big campaign, 38,000, or you see these big ones for $1 million. So most people are not using it to fully fund a business. It's to validate a product, to get them to the next milestone, to grow a customer list, but it's all work. That's the reality.
Who had it? Somebody over here.
Hi. Thank you. Hi, my name is Stacy Burnback, and this is going to be kind of a weird kind of question with a little bit of a backstory, if you don't mind. So I'm a serial entrepreneur. I sold my first business for $14 million by the time I was 35. I started with $3,000 in my basement. I am bipolar, or was bipolar, and 5 years ago I became suicidal, and it lasted for 5 years. And I fought, and I fought, and I fought, and I made it through. Through a book that I found online, and I holistically healed in 2 months. So I'm going out into the world to affect change, and I'm starting a CBD consumer products company. My problem isn't that I'm going to have any issue raising money. My problem is, how much should I take in?
And it's one of those without knowing the business, right? As you said, there's a lot of money in that space right now.
And I know a lot of people with a lot of money. Like Jesse Itzler and Sarah Blakely are my friends.
Yep, so we know.
Right. So the issue is, right, when you have access to all of that, right, you're gonna have the ironclad business plan that you're putting together. Obviously, I'm a woman on a mission, you could see it, right? You could feel it. I can't go to hubby right now for my money, because he wants to think it's his money. So,
Yeah, it's not an easy question to answer, right?
It's a question how you're on.
So maybe not really that relevant to everybody.
I guess what I'm trying to
How
say
quick
is,
are your
when you
cash?
look at, when you have access to a lot of capital,
Yeah.
potentially,
Okay.
What do you have to give up?
Maybe you guys could talk later.
Yeah, that's.
Have a booth.
I'm sorry if this is
Yeah,
not
I
appropriate.
just don't know if there's that many people in the room that are
I'm starting
having
a
that
new business
problem.
tomorrow, so I'm going to ask you for money.
Well,
That's the
wait,
smartest
wait, can you give me a year to get ahead?
Another question? Yeah.
Yes, I had 2 questions. Number one, are you all familiar with blockchain and cryptocurrency? If so, how does it help you finance your business? That's number one. Blockchain and cryptocurrency. And number 2, how do you start a crowdfunding campaign for your business? I mean, what are the ways to do it?
So I'll take the first one quickly and move, because it's about blockchain. I don't know if everyone's familiar with blockchain. And then into cryptocurrencies, and I don't know if anyone up here has an answer. No, it's the Wild West. So it's hard to know what the rules are. The regulators don't know quite yet. A lot of the investors, I mean, Warren Buffett wants nothing to do with it, if that gives you a clue as to where it is right now. So that's the first one, to the crowdfund.
Well, we can
I'll
talk
kick
about the
over
crowd-
there.
We can talk about the crowdfunding. I actually don't touch blockchain. Sorry.
Yeah.
Blockchain.
So crowdfunding.
Okay, so on the crowdfunding part, first and foremost, we need to identify what exactly are you going to offer to the market? Okay, so based on, are you offering a service business or a product? Are you trying to bring a product to the market? Then I would say you need to research the crowdfunding platforms and see which platform would actually work for what you are trying to do, because they don't all fit. And from there, you then work on a crowdfunding model of your product. What are you going to offer? If I give you $5, what am I getting? If I give you $250, what am I getting for that? That's critical. We actually give you a worksheet that you have to work through to identify these are the core things. We actually had a few clients come in and literally show us item by item, category by category, what they're going to offer before they actually put their crowdfunding stuff up on their website. So vital to know which platform is critical that would help you for what you're offering. You have Kickstarter, they're product-based. They don't take nonfiction authors, but they will take, if you want to write some other type of fiction book, that's a platform for you. Whereas you have Indiegogo, they're a huge platform. They take almost anyone, including those who want to have babies and need help. All kinds of crowdfunding opportunities. But again, it's really, what are you offering? Which platform would work for you? And then coming up with a model. And by the way, we cannot talk about crowdfunding without social media marketing and understanding social media. Because if you have no platform, you're not on any social media, don't have some kind of following or have a team with you to be able to make sure the marketing piece, because it's one thing you go through all the work, put it together, and don't have a marketing plan. So we have to have a key marketing plan around how you're going to crowdfund that project. Do you have local support? Do you have that online support? So if you're not out there already doing something, you need to get, can I say the term? Get jiggy with it.
I would add in real quick, there's product crowdfunding, which we've heard about, where you give away a t-shirt, a bumper sticker, or the actual product. There's also, it is now legal to do equity crowdfunding. It's legal to do debt. It's also the charitable type that we've seen, like GoFundMe. So there are different obligations you will have if you take in that money on a crowdfund. So you have to know that also. What will you owe to whoever put the money in?
And by the way, the government, they've put regulations in place. I actually give our clients that when they come to class. Here are the regulations, go read them because you want to understand what your rights are.
Right. Next.
Yes, so there is a thing out there called Pay for Success. Pay for Success is a the Pay for Success program has been used in the government. It's a three-legged...
Can you be brief, because we're running out of time?
Yes, so there is a customer, there is a provider of a service, and there is an investor. And the investor pays the provider no matter what. But if the customer is happy, then the investor gets paid by the customer plus whatever that negotiated fee is. That is the investor's opportunity to make money, but that investor has to understand the provider and what they do and how they work, and trust that that provider will deliver to the customer.
Is that just a comment, not a question?
No, the question is, it's an alternate funding method that has been used in the government to fund providers of health and social services. Can it be used for other services?
So basically you're talking about a concept called factoring or accounts receivable financing. It's another financing method. When you go to your bank, if you invoice your clients, this is a process where you could potentially get financing. The government did put a law in place back in 1940 to actually facilitate the fact that they were late on paying their bills. Yes, so companies are now able, if you get an invoice that you need to, you have an invoice that you need to get money into the door to meet payroll or whatever the case is, you then can actually sell that invoice to get money in the door a lot faster. So there are a variety of ways around this. There are other options in the mix of this, like purchase order financing and some other strategies. So if you want to learn more, since we are kind of out of time, reach out to us. We'll be in the cocktail room.
It sounds again like knowing which platform and approach is the best for you is something that you have to do your own research and figure that out for your own business model, because they're all so different. One more question?
Okay.
Oh, what, you don't want, it's,
No more.
One more?
Okay, one more quick.
So, I'll keep it quick. I have an idea for a product, and I think some sort of venture capital or equity partner is probably a good idea. How do you value or put value on a product that's sold yet? How do you evaluate it?
I'll just say very quickly, and I could talk to you about the things, but the one thing I hate is when I get a business plan and somebody's going to project what their sales are. And I've seen business plans on a product that's never been sold, and they predict year 3 revenue to be $17,895,417,418. So it's it's very hard to do. And that's why you see all these Series A, Series B, it just goes in different stages. So obviously you want to be able to enter the market. So remember that you can always go back for round 2, round 3, round 4, get off the ground first, and just take a lower, air on the side of lower, so you get it. You want to get into the playground. You want to get into the playpen, And if you need this money to get into the playpen, then I think you have to be more realistic. We could talk more at the cocktail party. Thank you.
Yes, so if anyone has any more questions, all of these amazing experts and plenty more will be over in the cocktail area, and I think we all probably agree that it's time for a drink, right?